And we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to the seventh live stream of the Music Hack Space. Hello Adam, Pierre, Dan, all people logging into YouTube. So I'm here with Rob Ramirez. Hi Rob.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I am hanging in there.
So you are based in Brooklyn, right?
I am based in Brooklyn, yes.
Cool. Well, I'm in London. So welcome everybody to this talk. So Rob Ramirez is the lead developer of Jitter. Jitter is the video library that goes along with Max. And he's also a performance artist and a DJ. And along with Tom Hall, who is on the YouTube feed, I think, and might answer some question if you have some. Along with Tom, Rob was supposed to go to Loop in Berlin for to present part of the element of this talk. Exactly, you can check his profile on the Loop page, and Loop did not happen, so he didn't make the travel. And we're very lucky to have him here on this channel to present some of the elements that he was going to present over there. So, yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for you, and I'm going to hand it over and disappear. Please ask any questions in the comments. Rob will be able to monitor them and answer them as he goes along. So, Rob, over to you. I'll see you in a minute.
Awesome, thanks, JB. So I am Rob. I am the lead gender engineer at Cycling, and I'm going to spend the next hour or so talking about jitter, which is something that I guess I know a good deal about. So there are so many different ways that this talk could go, but what I'm going to focus on is trying to help folks who maybe aren't so familiar with jitter navigate the landscape a little bit. As with anything with Max, it's we have a lot of different resources scattered around a lot of different places, and sometimes it's not so clear for new people, like what's the best way to get in and learn about stuff. So I'm hoping that I can kind of present a bit of a pathway for learning, and we are going to focus on a few different what I call high-level modules, packages of high-level modules, and these are all kind of terms that are sort of generic terms for things, but we'll look at what I mean by that. That link, and I think JB was going to put it in the chat as well, but this link here should take you to this Google Doc page where I have a bunch of links of things that I'm going to talk about. And at the end, you'll see this is a little section here that's currently empty. I will link up whatever patches that I used during this talk. It's empty now because I'm trying to keep that a bit open. So we'll see. I'm hoping that we can actually be a little more interactive, and I'm going to do my best. Kevin! So I don't know if you saw this thing that, I already closed it anyways. That was a little bit of V-Synth that we had on which Kevin is the creator of, and he is here, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm going to try and actually check the comments. And so that means that it's possible that the talk can be kind of redirected at any time. But I do have a plan, and we'll see how well I stick to that plan and how many crashes that happen and things that don't work as they are supposed to. On that note, I am going to be using a very, very recent beta of Max to do the building that we're going to be doing, 8.1.4, which is not out yet. And there's a reason for that. I'm just going to show a few new features from 8.1.4 that I think are going to kind of help this process a little bit. So that being said, it might crash. So what are we talking about? We want to talk about jitter and how we use jitter. I recently caught a little bit of another live stream that I guess these are happening all over the place, that Darwin Gross, our good friend and colleague at Cycling 74, participated in. And he did a brief it's just spectacular brief little chat about some of the things that he does with Max. And what I thought was really interesting, what he said that really encapsulated for me what it is about Max and jitter that I love. I think he basically said he just builds little machines with Max. He might have used different terminology, but that's what I remember. And I feel like that's what it is. It's a tool to build these little machines. Each machine is sort of specific for a certain project or goal that you have. So it's not so much this tool that does one thing really, really well. It's a tool that allows you to do a million different things. And for the Max programmer, every job has there's a different tool, a different machine, a different patch. You can reuse things, of course. You can build modules of things. You can build reusable components of things. You can have this whole. You can go as far as you want using the tools that we have to create your own sort of environment that you work with, customize your own environment. But oh man, I didn't realize that these were going off. How do I turn those off? Let's see. Do not disturb. Boom. But yeah, to me, I think that's super interesting about jitter. All right, so like I said, there is a ton of content out there for new users, but it's not really all gathered in one central place. So it's a little bit. This is just sort of an aspect of our culture as a company. We're a wild place. We're a wild group of people. There's a lot of weird things that people do, and to try and like tame that in any way or try and collect it all in one place is sort of an impossible task. So for this first little bit here, I'm hoping to kind of like help people out with navigating that, like I said. So these first two links here go to these articles that I highly recommend people check out. People that are interested in learning kind of any of the different aspects of Max, check out. This first one is an introduction to video lessons for Max users. Obviously, I mean, when I first started out, we didn't have any of this stuff. So it's always a little, when I hear people say, like, I'm struggling to find stuff, ways to learn Max or ways to learn jitter, I'm just like, man, you had no idea. But what I do acknowledge is that when I first started out, there was one place that you learned jitter, and it was the jitter tutorials. So now there's tons of different places. But these articles are sort of there to help out and collect some of the interesting things. I actually, this article, I think the series that I wanted to highlight is John Janone's series, specifically for jitter users. John Janone is actually a former teacher of mine, and he put up his, let's see, where are the, I was hoping that would go straight to the playlist, the Spring 2020 tutorials.
Hey everybody, here's the first tutorial of the semester,
and these are great because they get right into the GL aspect of jitter, which I think is an important place to start, rather than the jitter tutorials start with sort of more like get into like matrices. And I feel like for beginners, they just want to start putting stuff on screen and making it do interesting things. So I feel like these are good tutorials to start with. The second link here is our links. It's a similar kind of thing. These are all more jitter specific resources. And we have these lists of packages, and this is what I'm going to get into after we for the kind of the meat of this talk. We're going to look at some packages, the different articles that are online. And there's a ton, and they're pretty in depth and super useful. And then more of the video tutorials. Let's see, video and graphics tutorials, right. So we also have this series of tutorials that we wrote as a sort of updated version of our Jitter tutorial. So if you go, you can get this documentation from the Max website. Let's see, is that worth looking at? So if we go into Learn and Documentation and then Max 8. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, there's these video and graphics tutorials. And I think this is the first place people should start in addition to video tutorials. And it sort of depends on if you're more of if you like to read stuff or if you like to watch stuff. But this is where I would start before even looking at these Jitter tutorials. So those are there. Let's see, Jitter best practices series, right? So this is another sort of couple articles that were written. Here we get into this kind of distinction between matrices and textures, which is something I'll talk about a little bit too. But I go into a little bit more depth on that here. So take a look at that. And then this article I think is super important. It's called Searching in the World of Max. So learning how to find what you're looking for in Max is a whole topic in of itself. It's a whole skill in of itself. So this article gives some tips about doing that, about searching in Max. So I think that's super cool to look at. So as far as video tutorials, let's see. I think it's super interesting to watch people who go through the process of trying to build something and fail at it, and the ways that they deal with their failures, the debugging, the different tactics that they use to like figure out what's going wrong and kind of reason through why something isn't working. And so I think Sam, another friend and colleague at Cycling 74, Sam Terakajian, does this. Everybody knows our good buddy Sam. I don't think I'm saying saying anything new about these tutorials, but I think they are super fun to watch. He has a lot of different topics. The first one was, I think, in like almost 10 years ago, which is kind of funny. And he does a lot of this. He demonstrates a lot of this sort of problem solving that I think is super cool to watch and learn from. So check that out. Janone's tutorials, Federico. When you, I think the Federico tutorials, the Amazing Max tutorials, are really good for when you have when you're for more intermediate use. He gets into more intermediate and advanced topics specific to OpenGL and Jitter. So this is kind of a good little course of tutorials for people that want to learn about Jitter. So a ton of stuff. And then we have, so people that know Max, know it as this blank canvas where you connect boxes together, right? So you create a metro object and set its rate and then turn it on with a toggle and then bang a button and then you have a little metronome going, right? So what we also have though are these packages of what are called modules, and they're sort of higher level groups of objects that are sort of geared towards one specific kind of style of patching and style of content creation. And they can be super fun for people that don't necessarily have a solid understanding of everything that's going on with the more underlying stuff. Wow, there's a lot of people out there. Hey, everybody. So the modules are super cool. So we're going to go through these modules and then we're going to build something. So let's get into that. All right, so this link here links to this little article about the Max Package Manager, and that's where you're going to install stuff. I can go show that right here. Show Package Manager. You go up in here and you have all these packages, and there's a ton of packages. Shout out to all the package creators. Shout out to everyone that manages the Package Manager. I think this is just like one of the best things about Max 8 or just like more modern Max usage is these packages that really just like get to very specific uses and do really interesting things. Audio mix, really cool stuff. So we have a package called Visi, and it has recently been updated. And if you go onto this, the link here takes you to an article about the update. So I'm going to be looking at some stuff that is unique to the update, or rather that's only available in the updated version. So if you're following along, go ahead and install the Visi update. One thing that this update has is this really awesome Visi launch patch that goes pretty in depth to the different modules that you have. So this is what I mean when I say module. This is a Visi module, this little guy right here. And you can go to the little arrow if you've unlocked your patch. Go to the little arrow and say open, and then get out of presentation mode, and you can see the underlying logic from the module, the guts. But the module itself is just this little box with some dials. And so, and it has a little bit of text sometimes that shows you what the module does, hopefully. Doesn't look like it's coming up for some reason. Bang. Well, forget I said anything about that. But what we have in this Visi launcher is several kind of guides that walk you through the different families of modules. And Visi is pretty in depth. It takes a little getting used to. It did for me. All the kind of how the groupings work and how the data is passed and all this stuff, how you're supposed to use it. So it takes a little getting used to. So it's worth, I think, going through these Visi launcher patches and getting a little bit of a handle on that. But you add Visi to your patch by this. One of the ways you can do it is in the toolbar menu over here. You click the V, the little menu pops out, and you see these different families of objects. So kind of learning what these different families are all about is a kind of important for doing Visi stuff. But Visi is super fun and easy to get like kind of crazy stuff happening right away. Get your crazy little machines built. So we're gonna look at Visi, and then we're gonna look at this package called V-Synth, like I mentioned before. Again, shout out to Kevin. V-Synth is a package that's sort of designed for people who are more familiar with modular audio systems. So again, you have this launcher patch when you install V-Synth from the package manager called V-Synth Launch. And the other really great thing about V-Synth, besides just being a really interesting set of modules, is these two things here, the lessons and the patch book. So you just open up the patch book here and you get crazy stuff right away. And in fact, we were playing, it wasn't from here, it was from, what is it, About here, this guy. We were playing this patch when we started the stream. And this is, I love this patch because it's 3 modules and it's using feedback. So you can actually see it. This module is outputting and then feeding back into this module, which is then going back into this. So the feedback is, you know, an incredible tool for both audio and visuals. So this, like I said, these 3 modules of V-Synth gives you this incredible amount of texture and variation and really kind of gorgeous stuff. So V-Synth is a lot of fun. Again, another, especially for me, who is a, you know, I'm a Jitter user. I know Jitter well, so it's always hard for me to like get into these different styles of patching and different ways of thinking about creating visuals. So another one that you want to kind of go through some of the lessons and figure out exactly what it's doing. But just banging stuff together with V-Synth is super fun. So the third thing we're going to look at is something called ISF. And these are our good friends at VidVox. Created this format for sharing hardware GPU generated visuals. It's called ISF. And the cool thing about ISF, so there's a package for it, and you download it and install it in the package manager. When you install it, and then again go for the ISF launcher that's in your extras menu. You will then want to immediately install the library of ISF files, and your launcher will say something different and will hopefully direct you properly to how to install the library. But you have to install this library so that you have access to all these files. On the website of ISF, there is this, no, not that. What do I want? I don't quite know where it is. Examples, editor. When you get to the editor, then you can kind of browse all these different effects. Every single one of these effects we have access to in Jitter. So that's what's super cool. And the thing about the way ISF is built is you get these parameters for free, basically. So we'll look at that, how to do that. But when you use ISF and Jitter, there's ways to just there's a process for getting these for getting like a little box full of sliders that you can start playing with right away, which is super cool. So that's ISF. The last little thing that we might look at is GL3. I'm gonna wait. I'm not even gonna talk about GL3. If we get there, great. I kind of a feeling we won't. But let's just get into some actual stuff. Let me take a quick update coming out next week of V-Synth. Fantastic. A little more zoom in the Max interface, please. You got it. Okay. So here's where things might start going south for me. I'm going to try and build something. And I built this thing last night, and it looked awesome. And what I want to do is I'm going to start with Visi, and I'm going to build something, and then I'm going to start adding in these other elements. And I want to, and the idea being, I want to show how all these different places, all these different modules can interact together, which I think is super cool. Is when you, because that's the beautiful thing about Macs. And we're just looking at visuals today, but obviously there are so many tools with Macs for audio and device management and data, and Node for Macs, and getting, JSON data from weather and using that to, all this stuff. So everything patches into everything else, and that's really where like the magic is. So just looking at these different, like I said, these different ways of approaching visuals, these different kind of frameworks for doing that, they can all be patched together. So that's what we're going to try and do. So let's close that. All right, and then I've got my little cheat sheet over here. This thing's going. So what we want to do, first thing when we start working with Visi is the first object that we want to create is called a projector. So I apologize about the size of this screen. I can't change that, but I can zoom in on the patch itself. But this little menu, I believe, is stuck at whatever size it is. But you want to go to the Visi menu, you want to click Output, and you want to click Projector. And so you add a projector module. And this is basically just a window and a context. It's called a GL context. I'm going to enable, and let me zoom in. I'm going to enable floating so that the window sits on top of the patch window. A brief bit about this concept of GL, a GL context. If you take one thing away from this talk, then I want you to take away that you should use textures, if at all possible, when doing video with Jitter. We are not able to make that the default behavior, because we will break patches from 20 years of Jitter use. But patches of Jitter objects spit out either matrices or textures. So just an example of that. This might not actually be so clear, but you can, so this is a playlist object, and it plays a movie, and it's going through this filter. And so this is a 1080p movie file playing. It's our famous chickens that we all know and love. If I look at the dim, it says 1920 by 1080. It's a big movie file. If by the default state of playlist, it's going to output matrices. And you'll see that my frame rate, and this is just a meter for how fast the CPU can do stuff. It's not really measuring the actual frames, but you see it goes way down. When I press stop, it shoots way back up. If I do that exact same movie file, but I've enabled output texture and run it through a texture Bracosa filter and play it through a JIT world, you'll see that this, and this is the video right here, you'll see that this monitor is much higher. So all that to say is textures mean speed. So please be aware of whether you're doing textures or matrices. This is a new thing in 8.1.4. We actually have blue patch cords coming out of our video playback objects when they are output texture enabled, and green when they are output texture disabled. So this is actually a new thing in and it's sort of embarrassing that it's been this long, that it's been broken, but that's what it is. But the real way to test whether you have matrices or textures is just shove a message box. So if you plug the patch cord into the right inlet of the message box, it'll say JetGL texture, and if it's matrices, it'll say Jet matrix. So you have to be aware of if you're using matrices or textures. Huge thing. And you want to use textures unless there's a reason. There are plenty of reasons to use matrices, but if you're just doing imagery, if you're just doing video and affecting it in a certain way, then usually textures are the way to go. And Visi does, both Visi and V-Synth and ISF, these three packages that I mentioned, all process textures. So that's why that's a cool thing. Hey, Viola. So let's see here. Projector. And then we're going to put an input in. So let's add a player. And we just connect it. And we can drop in a video. And we should just drop in. Oh, that didn't crash. Amazing. Let's just drop in our chickens. And they are off. All right. So let's start doing stuff to this. There is a new module called separator, I think. Effect. Separator. Yeah. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to grab it here because, oh no, actually I don't need to cheat. I can just grab it from here. Where did it go? It's going down there for some reason. All right, so plug this bad boy in. I'm going to hold down Shift and drag, and it pops right in. And so now we get this kind of glitchy color plane separation thing. Okay, so that looks cool. One thing that you see right away is that when you go on the vertical axis, you kind of get this line here, which is the edge of the video file. So one easy way of fixing that is to just put a zoomer to zoom the video in so you don't see that. Or maybe that's desired. Plug the zoomer in and get it zoomed in where you want it, and you no longer have that line when you go up on the vertical. So I just like that better. I also like to kind of like get a loop of these chickens kind of dancing. Okay, so then these parameters here are interesting, but I don't want to sit here with the mouse and twiddle on them. So this is where Visi has some interesting tools for twiddling knobs for you. And this is where I'm going to cheat. I'm going to grab this right here and paste it in. So we have here something called the attractor. This module is in, I think, control. No, this is in generate, right? Yeah, generate. It's generating control values. So you can kind of, the attractor module generates values based on the Navier-Stokes equation and provides outputs for each of the 5 parameters, blah, blah, blah. Don't really care. It just spits out some numbers, and because it's Visi, all these numbers can be plugged in. Everything can be plugged in. Every outlet in Visi can basically be plugged into an inlet, which is one of the cool things about it. So if I plug one of those outlets in, it starts doing stuff to the red X offset. I did this before, and I didn't want the full range of 0 to 1 that these modules output. So I actually just put this little patch here that scales them down. Basically everyone gets scaled using just simple scale objects to 0 to 0.05. And this is also sort of an example of how you mix stuff, mix raw max with Visi. This object, we can take a look at what it's outputting. It's outputting a number between 0 and 1. So I can use any max object that takes a floating point number, such as scale. And so I'm able to just easily scale those values down. So I'm just going to bang those all into every input. And this thing will be off and running, doing some stuff. So it's already kind of doing some interesting stuff without really having to do much. Cool. What else should we look at? So that goes out right. So when I was working on this, I wanted to add another effect in. And that effect that I wanted to use came. Okay, so that goes out. So yeah, I wanted to let's add another effect. This little module called yes, sorry. So the Visi cable, so the Visi update came before the blue patch cord fix. It's very important to me to get the Visi patch cables blue. So that actually should be fairly easy to fix. At some point in the future, we will have blue patch cables for Visi. So this object called Zampler is a kind of classic jitter effect. So why not? Let's throw it in. And it does this kind of weird stuff. You can open up the module to see what exactly it's doing, but let's just enjoy its beauty and not question that. What I'm going to do is grab one of these parameter modulation outlets here and plug them into the to the scale of the Zampler. And so then that crazy stuff happens. Now, once the Zampler's on, you kind of don't even see this color separator effect. So what I decided after playing with this is that I liked kind of going back and forth between these two effects. And so there is a way to do that with Visi as well. And it is it the clicker? I guess so. So I'm just going to cheat again. Sorry for all the cheating. I'm going to grab another generator module. I know it's a generator because it's got the same color as the attractor generator module of this little toolbar color. So that's sort of one of the things that you learn with Visi is sort of the color coordination and what that all means. So what this is doing, so Wanderer is just a Brownian motion. It's basically a drunk object. So if you've ever used drunk object, you'll recognize speed and step size. Well, speed is the augmentation that the Visi module gives us, but step sizes should be familiar. And as you can see, I've plugged it into this thing called Clicker. And Clicker will either output a 1 or a 0. It does different things, but in our case, it's outputting a 1 or a 0 depending on the input. So as the wanderer wanders around and it goes above and below, I think 0.5, it's going to click on and off. I then send that on and off to a bang -1, which basically inverts it. So when this input is 1, this output will be 0, and vice versa. So what I have is this thing that basically turns things on and off, and it'll turn one thing on and the other thing off, and back and forth. So hopefully that made sense. I can plug that into the sampler and this into the separator, and if I'm not mistaken, it will toggle between the two. Yeah. All right. So it's looking kind of interesting. Another kind of core effect that I like to throw onto things is sort of like reverb. People say, you throw reverb on and it makes everything sound better. I kind of feel the same way about this feeder object. It's just a feedback, additive feedback with bleed control. And it just can kind of acts the same way as reverb. It kind of smooths things out and gives you some really simple ways of getting different visual effect. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, I mixed. What did I do? I mixed something. Well, we don't have to worry about that right now. All right. So if I plug this in, and this takes a little bit of tweaking to get these working. But what I think is an interesting thing is basically, whereas before we were using this sort of invert thing to do a toggle, so when one is off, the other one is on. I like to do the same thing with floating point numbers and feedback, so that you can basically bring feedback up and bring feed forward down the exact same amount. And when I was doing that before, it was working fairly well. So let's try that again. So that's just grabbing one of those control. Yeah, so we're just going to grab another one of these, any of these outlets, and it doesn't matter which, they're all going between 0 and 1. And I'm going to plug one of them into feed forward and one of them into feedback, but the inverse of the of that one. All right, give me my patch cord. So that's feedback, and then if we go bang -1 floating point, don't forget your dot, then we get the inverse of that going into this. So now it's kind of doing this sort of thing. And then you can control how much of the effect with the bleed. You can control how kind of blown out it gets. So that's kind of interesting. What are we doing on time? Oh, we're really burning up time. Okay. So what do we want to look at? Let's go into some other stuff. I don't feel like, oh, maybe the rotator thing. Okay. Let's grab one more object and do something with it, and then we'll start banging in some other stuff here. So, and the reason I want to look at this is because I think it's an interesting, I want to show another way of controlling parameters. So we have these Visi modules that can control parameters in interesting ways. And I, to be honest, actually use something else primarily, and I will tell you what that is. I'm going to throw a rotator transform module. Just, where is it? There it is. Let's move this around. So rotator, just exactly what it says. It spins the input in a circle. And so the cool thing is it'll wrap any values that it comes into between 0 and 1. So you can kind of get it going just spinning away. And so we have a object that will just spit out a stream of numbers that corresponds to the amount of seconds that have elapsed. And it's called jit.time. And it is, these are the JIT time objects that come in the JIT package, which is now installed by default with Macs. So you don't have to install anything separately for these. But as I said, it just outputs a number. That corresponds to seconds. And then the cool thing is you can, so first I can just plug this into rotation and it starts spinning away. But then I can control different aspects of this thing, like the speed. So I can slow it way down, etc. Now what I think is kind of cool is controlling the speed of this thing. Kind of gives you some weird glitchy movement. So we have this other object that's also a JIT time object. It's called jit.time.perlin. And Perlin does some interesting stuff. It's a Perlin noise stream, one-dimensional stream of numbers. And it also has speed and other attributes like scale and rotation. But what's cool is if you bang that Perlin noise onto the speed of the rotation, so then you get this sort of like interesting organic movement of the rotation. And you can control the different aspects of the Perlin. So what I like to do is, what I have done is created these snippets. Now snippets are a really interesting tool to use that I'm not going to cover because it's a whole nother thing, but they're pretty easy to get a handle. And I have my snippets in a package. I call it user package because I have generic names for everything. And I have a snippet here called Time Perlin. And it's basically just a little, so this is sort of an example of how you can kind of create your own modules, sort of like how how Visi works. So if you create a snippet of a B patcher, and so this is what it is. It's just the Perlin object with an enable button and sliders onto these different attributes: speed, scale, and offset. And so when I plug this into the speed of the JIT time, I can really kind of get in and tweak exactly how I want the thing to spin. So that's fun to play with. And then again, you start chaining these things together. I can just have another one here, and I can control the speed of the first one, doing the same kind of stuff. And then, I don't know, it's just super fun to get way down the rabbit hole with this sort of stuff. Turn it on. Leave the offset at 0. Anyways, so you get kind of like crazy movement. That's sort of fun to look at. The last thing that I wanted to look at before moving on to the other stuff is, or should we just skip that for now? God bless bpatchers. Bpatcher S snippet. Yeah, that's fun stuff. Is that an abstraction? Where should it be placed to recall? Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. So the way you make a snippet is pretty straightforward. You grab a group of objects. I'm just going to grab 2 toggles, and what I'm going to do is select them and then see if I can remember exactly how to do this. Right click, save snippet. Not sure if there's a menu up here that does it too. I think maybe here. Well, anyways, it's in the right click menu. You say save snippet. You give it a name, and then I called that my togs. And then when you right click, they should show up. User snippets. That's a bummer. They usually show up. Maybe I did something wrong. Sometimes you need to restart. But what I think is a better way of doing this is, so they show up into documents. Jesus Christ. Documents, max 8, snippets. Oh, it didn't show up. So I must have done something wrong. But what you can do then is copy them into your own kind of package, and you can kind of do your own sort of file management with them so that they show up wherever you want. So if you go into your packages folder, you can create what, like I said, I called it user package. And in user package, there's a snippets folder. And this is where all my where I copy all my snippets to. This folder is actually an alias, so that's a whole nother thing, but let's not get into that. But like I said, and then I think you can even have folders in here so that the menu is a little more organized, which is something that I should do. My snippets are kind of getting out of control. But that's the snippet thing. I think snippets are total lifesavers. You can also get your snippets, I think, from the file browser, which is another very cool tool to get familiar with. But let's not go there right now. So, like I said, I at least want to look at V-Synth a little bit because, I mean, Kevin's here, so let's look at V-Synth. So this thing's kind of doing some obnoxious stuff. Great. So I want to add in some V-Synth to this. So, and actually, I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll add in some V-Synth, and then we'll mix it together with some ISF. So, like I said, there's this V-Synth launcher that does all kinds of crazy stuff, and you can follow along there. I don't use this, and what I want to do is basically use V-Synth inside of my world, inside of my Jitter world, rather than using V-Synth in its own thing. And there's a way to do that, and I will share this with everybody. And I've created another snippet for it, and it's called V-Synth context, and I hope that this works. Yeah, that was it. So this little patch contains everything that you need to use V-Synth in your own, outside of the kind of V-Synth context, so that I can mix it with Visi. Kevin might have a different way of doing this, I'm not really sure, but this is how I do it. These are just sort of little objects that V-Synth needs to get its timing and its resolution and its bangs and stuff like that. So, so I would say, I think you set the, and I'm not sure if I should do this. now or after anyways, so this is the V-Synth context. So now if I go and get my V-Synth launcher, I think, oh, that's right, you need the, there's like a little tool that you use to create objects with V-Synth, which is this guy right here. And I think that's enabled when you do the new patch in the V-Synth launcher. You'll get this little guy right here. So yeah, like I just want this guy, all I'm looking for. So I'm going to close all this stuff. It gets a little confusing if you have too many V-Synth things open. So I'm going to close all this. And actually, I'm just going to copy all of these guys. So this is just that little bit that I was looking at before. I'm going to paste it in. This little 3 modules that are feeding back into each other. And let's see if it's doing something. And then I need the bang. So we have, I can get the bang from Visi using this receive Visi draw. And then oh, it's going. Great. So here's something that's new. Normally I would have said don't ever use a P window as a viewer for a texture, but in Max 814, the P windows have been updated and they now can display textures without doing a readback. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, then don't worry about it. But for those of you that means something to, it's pretty cool. It makes it much easier to have P windows all over the place as a debugging tool to see what's going on without slowing your patch way down. And you'll see that, well, you probably can't see on the live stream, but my normally if I had done this, everything would all of a sudden start slowing down. But with 814 update, that's no longer the case. So that's super cool. So this thing, like I said, it's there's like a low pass oscillator thing, and this, I mean, I can't really get into what all these objects are doing or why they're named what they are, why they behave the way they are. Like I said, I think it has to do with modular synthesis that I know nothing about. But I do understand that you're plugging this into the frequency modulation. So if I turn up the frequency modulation, some crazy stuff starts happening. It's lots of fun. You know, start just banging on these different things and you get weird, wild stuff. So, okay, I like that. I want to mix it in with this somehow. And I could use these Visi compositing objects, mixed composite. There's a few of them. Whoops, mixed composite. But what I'd like to do is look at the ISF. Yeah, it's pretty cool. What I'd like to do is look at the ISF launcher and look at this tab here called transitions. ISF has all these super cool transition filters that have been forever lacking in Jitter. We just don't do these. So I just think these are super fun. You can just kind of go here and find one that you like. I think I liked Morph before. Yeah, Morph is pretty cool. So what you can do is just copy the this little UI thing right here. I mean, in this case, in this filter, there's only 2 parameters. It's not a huge deal, but some of them have tons of parameters. So it's super helpful to just be able to copy this little box here that I got from the launcher patch and copy that and paste it in. And then what did I call it? Oh, this is Morph. So I just copy that. I'm going to close that. I'm going to say glisf at file morph. Now, the cool thing about ISF is you can double click and get the filter. Oh, I'm sorry, get the shader source code and see the different parameters of it. Now for the transition filters, it's a little cumbersome. I wish that we had worked to make this better, but you have to prepend. Let's see. I'm just going to open up the launcher again because I can't quite remember what it is. Right. So you have to say prepend start image and prepend end image for these filters, for these transition filters. So let's grab that guy and this guy, and then this guy, and then I lost my UI, so let me grab that again. Transitions, morph, grab this guy to ISF trans, and that goes straight in. Oh geez, there it went. No. Phew. Grab this guy and put it into the ISF object. And now we kind of can transition between V-Synth and Visi. Now, when I first built this patch, this transition happened on this feedback chain, and it was wild. It was totally wild stuff that was happening. I didn't get a chance to quite build that yet. What was that doing? I can't quite remember. But what you find is when you start feeding stuff back into itself is when the real magic. Andrew Benson's in the chat, and of course he is the master of that. So you get like really uncontrollable stuff. I wanted to show that. I'll just open up the patch maybe. I'll just save this. Can you stop? There's too much going on. All right. Save as live stream. And then if I open, let me get rid of all that. Lord of mercy. This guy. Oh yeah. So here is where, yeah, this is what I was sort of talking about. There's like, there's some feedback happening where okay, so this is some sort of advanced stuff, and we're using JITGL pass. So I'm basically just throwing a JITGL pass object, which is a tone mapper, which is a super cool thing that can really allow you to tweak what's going on with the final color of your thing. It's sort of tricky to get the hang of, but super useful. And then it does this bloom filter too, which can kind of be weird and funky. But since there's so much going on in this patch, it's just like totally unwieldy. But what it does is outputs a texture. And so what I did was take that output and then fed it back into this resampler object. And then I, oh, those aren't working. Oh, well. And then that kind of gets mixed in with the original. And the amount that feedback comes in is controlled here, and it kind of disappears if you got too much going on. And then there was, yeah, with the V-Synth stuff happening, oh, this is where I had the ISF thing, and this all gets in, and then that gets fed back into the original image. And so Anyways, it just gets like crazy. It gets totally crazy and totally fun. And I didn't get into snapshots, but I feel like there's a lot. So basically, the cool thing about Visi is that all of these modules are snapshot ready. What that means is that in your main patch, you can open up your snapshot window and just click a new snapshot, and it'll save the state of all your Visi patches, ideally. There's always some hiccups here and there, but for the most part, you're able to really like get. And so what I do is I save this tone map. Again, this is another thing that's saved as a snippet in my user package. Somewhere. Yeah, I really need to clean up these, but GL pass tone map. I've saved this as a snippet, and each of these are snapshot ready as well. So that when I paste that in, these can all be part of the snapshot very easily as a way of saving the state of your patch and recalling it. The same with these, and as well as snapshots, they're pattern storage ready. So if you throw a pattern storage on, you see all your doohickeys ready to be presetted. This is again some more advanced max usage, but snapshots are super easy. You just click the button and you get a snapshot and you save your patch, and that snapshot saves with it. If you click this circle right here, the snapshot then becomes part of the patch rather than saved as a separate file, and that's generally what I like to do. I just want everything in the same patch rather than saved somewhere else on the disk. So I can move this patch around to a different computer and the snapshots will come with it. But then you can kind of click into the different states that you've saved. I think V-Synth also listens to snapshots. Is that right? Yes, it does. Look at that. Boom, boom. Oh, Colorizer's doing some cool stuff. Okay. Enable print. Oh, good. People are asking questions. Let's just get rid of that. And yeah, I don't know. JB, what should we do now? Are we done? Are there?
Well, you tell me, Rob. I mean, feel free to carry on if there's anything you want to show to people. And if we have questions from the comments from people to things they want to look in particular, and if you have time, very happy to host you for a little longer.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions or if somebody wants to send me on a tangent. It's really hard to know if any of these tangents are useful or totally up my own butt. So I will pass it to the comments.
Ginger has a suggestion. I'm not sure whether that's feasible, but to put my feed into a filter.
Oh, oh, I just published an article about how to do that stuff. But unfortunately, we're using this new fangled thing, and it didn't grab the camera. Yeah, you can create a virtual camera device with this tool called CamTwist on Mac, and then you can select it, but it wasn't working. Oops, it wasn't working when we were testing. So let's not go down that rabbit hole. But in theory, you can do that kind of stuff. It might be that because this is going through Google Chrome that there's something with that. The CamTwist driver actually showed up in Chrome, so I don't know. Yeah, CamTwist is super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So
Well,
I wish that we had. I wish that I could just turn that on right now to show you, but I can't. So
I have a question for you, Rob. People seem to be excited earlier when you presented the one of the releases in 1.8.14, and I was wondering if there was any other new features that people might be excited about that you didn't mention.
that's a good question. Yeah, there is. So this is another kind of thing that might seem a little mundane, but I think new Jitter users will appreciate. So yeah, the P window thing is cool. It will do the texture readback without, it'll do the texture displaying without the readback. It works kind of in this passive way, so it's not an active context that's going to grab objects and add it to itself, but it will display textures. So if you have a context running and have texture output coming out of it, or any context, and you're having textures that are being processed by that context. So like this guy, I'm not sure if he's even going to work. Right. So now I got my camera, and I've got these textures, and I can put a Visi filter on there, and then I can bang that in there, and it'll display the texture. Great. But what it won't do, it's not an active context. So what if I want to output my texture into a P window without a JIT world? Well, we have this new object called jit.pworld that there's might be some more finessing that needs to happen, but yeah. So now I turn automatic on. I have output texture enabled. I don't have any other context in my patch. I just have the P world context. So now P world, this is a P window that has an active context. So for instance, I can paste in a spinning torus. Oh, look at that. So this is kind of cool. There are massive updates to playlist and JIT playlist coming in 8.14. Somebody else on my team who remembers new 8.14 features. We're looking at an update to CEF. Called jit.cef, so CEF is our kind of built-in Chrome web browser, and we have this something that might make it an 8.14 is basically it's called jit.cef, and it outputs either a texture or a matrix of the web browser, which is a lot of fun, where you can kind of do pretty cool stuff with that in Node and different things. Maybe use some of the webcam filters and with background subtraction tools directly with CEF in your patch. I'm still kind of exploring that stuff, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it right now.
There is a suggestion from Andrew to talk about jit.mo.
Yeah, jitmo is not necessarily new to 8.14, but it has recently been incorporated in the thing, in the distribution, and we have a Jitmo launcher where a lot of the cool stuff that you can do with Jitmo is hiding. This kind of stuff, super fun. Just a few different objects, Jitmo things. I don't have the brain power to like get into Jitmo right now, but I can say look at Jitmo. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, P World is fun. What else is in 8.14? I know there's some more stuff, but I'm sort of blanking on it now. I've been very much involved with the Visi update, where a lot of cleanup and new tools and stuff happen. Oh, that's a cool thing. Let's see if this will even work with P-World. This might be a pain point here. Can't quite remember. Boom. So we have this new Visi object. Gregory spent a lot of time on this, just getting this object functioning. This is a wrapper around the jit.gl.bfg object that exposes a lot of the fun stuff that you can do with it. So if we enable color and enable zoom and start tweaking some of these things. So it's really cool. He put a lot of time into like figuring out how to expose these parameters. So for instance, if I get out like my fractal Brownian motion, you see the fractal parameters show up here. So, you know, this one you want to like slow way down, zoom way in, and then you can start like tweaking these guys. Oh. I lost them. I lost it. Yeah, there's some stuff happening. So this is all texture stuff. It is very cool. The colorization, you just turn it on or off. These guys. So this is in the Visi update, along with a few other interesting new Visi modules. Yeah, Visi is a lot of fun to get. Oh, and then I think he did. I think there is a colorizer. Yeah. Oh, this guy's cool too. So basically, this this little function right here, the cosine colorization, I think goes in here, and then you kind of get your own. Yeah, there's a bunch of different palettes here, which is super cool. Invert. Yeah, this guy's fun. What I like to do is to grab this and then send it through some other colorization things. So there's like the hue and stuff like that, but then there's Mapper does some wild stuff to the different. Yeah, so you get, you know, like, so you get like all this color stuff happening through these little tools. That's super cool. And when you start tweaking the color of these, especially these basis functions, you get totally different looks, which is kind of interesting. Where's this guy? Yeah, this guy does wild stuff depending on what these settings are. Oh, I totally lost it. That happens. And then you can kind of like invert it with like, if I use the inverters of these, maybe. I don't know, I'm not quite getting what I remember from this. But anyways, lots of fun there. Is the BFG.
A couple of questions popped up, Rob. What about matrix output feature for Jitter.gl.graph? It's a request for a second.
Please, matrix output feature for Jitter. Oh, I thought it did have that.
Huh.
Let's see. I swear I've looked at this in the past, so. Oh, you know, maybe not. Oh God! Please don't play. I'm assuming it's not working since someone says that they want it. So, but you know, just for, it's like, swear I've looked at this before. There's something similar to it. Yeah, there's something happening. I don't know if that's what's supposed to happen. It looks like it.
Okay, well, that was a picture that was easily
Look
satisfied.
how quickly
So,
feature requests
well,
are
well
solved.
done, Rob.
This
That
is
makes
matrix
me
output
happy.
of JGL graph. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There was another question from Martin. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Martin saying, "Any advice on creating a movie file equivalent of SF right?"
Yeah. So I do have some advice on that, and I wrote it all in this article that is linked in these best practice series. So if you go to the best practices, best practices in Jitter, part 2 is where we talk about recording. So you can record in Jitter. You can use, the simplest is using the recorder module of Visi. Slightly more advanced is using jit.record or jit.vcr. Jit.vcr functions almost exactly the same, except it has audio inputs as well. And yeah, it works. It works as well as your machine works. As you know, if your machine can keep up with what it's doing, what I would highly recommend is continuing to read and getting into the external software. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have this idea that using external software is somehow not ideal, which I can kind of understand, but it's like you're offloading operations to another application. You're offloading processing power to another application. You're making better use of your CPU cores or your GPU. By doing that, you're getting you have less of a chance of like hiccups and things like that when you do that. So I recommend people read this article and look at some of the things, some of the different tools for doing recording with other software. It's all free. You're just using Siphon and Spout. It's really simple. You just get in here and like so this is my current thing. I just go here and I say output texture enable, and then I get my JIT DL.siphon server, and on Windows it's Spout sender, and then this fancy new blue patch cord comes out of JIT World, and then I go into Siphon Recorder, and oh, it's not coming up. I think this has to be like layer 9999 or something like that, or I might have too much going on. Yeah. So you want to set the layer really high because it needs to draw last. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but you get it in Siphon Recorder, and then I think Siphon Recorder can even be scripted, or at least the Apple script. I'm not entirely sure. I can't quite remember, but I've done something like that in the past. But you can record audio with it as well. So you use something like Black Hole, install Black Hole, and then send your Max audio to Black Hole. These are covered in more detail in some of those articles. So yeah, so that's I mean, you can so just to reiterate, you can do it in Max entirely. Use a JIT.record, and instead of output texture, I would say output matrix. And let's see if, boom, green patch cord. Oh man, that's so cool. So I would just say output matrix, and I would get the matrix of the scene, and that goes into JIT record. And you can easily record files, use a JIT VCR, and you would record audio instead. You would record audio and video. So I would go here, and then I would put my audio signals here. So, yeah. Cool.
Thanks. So maybe to wrap this up, what are you currently working on? What's next for Jitter? Is there any feature requests that came your way that you're working on that people might be excited to look forward to?
Sure. I'm happy to talk about that. The 814 work and the Visi update kind of coincided together with a few other things that were happening, but it was a lot of like, especially with what's happening, and I'm not going to get all like, in these uncertain times or anything, but we did have a kind of collective desire to, make sure that we're addressing our users' needs, and so for me that meant like a lot of stuff like the P world and the P window and the patch cores and stuff, like little things like that just weren't working, and I wanted to get them working. I want to like lower the barrier of entry for people. I think Max is like the perfect thing to spend your time on while you're quarantining. It's just like it's such a tool that you just dive, if you're able to just dive into it. It's so rewarding. So, little inconsistencies and things kind of trip up people, and we're trying to like, take a look at those and address those. In addition to that, just I kind of go back and forth between the video stuff, the video objects, and the GL stuff. And those are two different worlds. And so for me, I have to like focus on one and then kind of shift my attention to the other. So Visi video object stuff. We've got an update to Viddle coming that better supports the HAP playback. HAP is this codec that's built for real time. We updated the AVF engine on the last update, so the Viddle update is coming, so that Windows HAP playback will be much improved. So then I'm going to shift back to GL3. And we have a bunch of people doing beta testing with GL3. I just had a long conversation with Tariq Bari, who was sifting some of his stuff to GL3, and I'm sure he's going to give me a bunch of reports on that. Some of our people here in the chat have been keeping me on my toes with that stuff. So I'm going to shift focus back to GL3 and see. There'll be some investigating into what GL3 is going to turn into in the future, and I can't really say too much more about that, but just to say that obviously we're aware that the landscape is shifting under our feet, thanks to our Apple overlords have made some decisions about certain things, and so we're going to be investigating how we can best provide our tools in that in the changing that changing world. GL3 is the portal to that world. So we will be continuing to work on GL3 and seeing where that takes us with in regards to those other things, which I'm not trying to be cryptic, but there's only so much I can say about that stuff.
Cool. So there's a bunch of people that you already know that came tonight, which is great. You clearly are very connected to the user base. And for people who are not connecting to you at the moment and want to send features your way, and so what is the best way to do that?
So I am very active on. That's a good kind of segue. Oh, and actually, I didn't put it here. So here's my email. Oh, this link is still, did that ever get thrown into the chat? Anyways, hopefully it did.
It did, yeah.
Okay, great. So this link is here. There's my my email. You can always email me. But I am very active on the forums and in the Facebook group. So those places. So I will still stand by the forums. I think the forums are, you know, we've had Cycling 74 has had some kind of mailing list or forum for like what, 20 years? I don't even know. It's been a long time. So I feel like the forums are, they're the almighty Max forums. They're not going anywhere. But that being said, the Facebook group is, should I bring up my Facebook? Oh God. The Jitter Facebook group is where all the cool kids are at these days. So I try to definitely stay up on what's going on there. So any of those places, I'm going to be looking at stuff. What's this V-Synth package? Oh, look at that. But yeah, email is fine. I'm always going to listen. We'll always respond to an email. And happy to hear from people. And yeah, and we actually started a Slack channel. I don't know if anyone's interested in that. We have a Slack, kind of Max user Slack channel going. It started, Tom created it, I think, about a year ago, and it kind of sat dormant. And then we struck up this chat, a few of us who were interested in doing Jitter dev work. Now that's different than Jitter using Jitter with Max. Jitter dev is actually creating your own externals that get used with Max, and so that's a whole kind of other topic. But we started up a Slack Jitter dev channel, but there is just a straight Jitter channel, and it's Slack, so anyone can get in there and create any channel they want. So the way that gets shared and in invites, I'm not really sure of, and I think we're still kind of like figuring it out. But if anyone's interested in that Slack channel, either on the Jitter dev or just, whatever, you can contact me, and I'll resend the invite out for that. I think the invite is currently on some post in the forum, so it's not really, we're not really like actively promoting this right now, but we're kind of seeing if it's something that people are interested in. There's so many channels, so I try to, like, that's my limit. Forum, Facebook, email, and Slack. I'm not doing Discord. I'm not doing anything else, Twitter, or anything like that. So I have my limit.
Cool. We have a last question coming in from the chat. What is the best way to export high def images? And someone is saying export image. Do you confirm that's the case?
I don't quite understand this question either. I know people have had the problem with it. High def, is there some meaning beyond just high resolution? Maybe there is that I'm not aware of, but
I suppose the resolution is what you see in what you define in the matrix, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if I go into a JIT world object, so I can set a size of 1280 by 720. That's the size of my window. So if I turn that on, and then, but then I can also, so let's just break out the generator guy again, because he's easy. And then if I I can decouple this this window size from the output size. So if I say dim, this is the texture dimensions of what it's capturing. So, and I think this is true. Say 4,000 by 4,000. Turn it back on, and then say output matrix. Let's see what happens. You see it slows way down, which is fine. we'll turn that off, and then you just bang it. You know, you're not gonna be doing real time if you're getting this high. Maybe even 8,000 by 8,000. I don't know if there's a limit here. That seems to be coming out too dim, and then you just send that to a what is 6,000 by 6,000? Andrew says, cool. And then you send that to a matrix. I guess let's go through this, see if it works. Matrix. I bang that, and then if I say export image, and there are some parameters to export image, but let's just do that and test export, see what happens, and then here. Oh, it's still coming out. Look at that. Oh, it's still going. So we'll see if that actually works. Okay, the beach ball stopped. I mean, that's pretty high resolution. So maybe I don't understand the question.
No, I think you answered it correctly. I think Frankie, who asked the question, say thank you. So I think you answered it.
Okay, great. There might be some weird stuff about it, but as far as I know, that works. And I think a few other, like Federico, didn't you do a whole like study on this? Or I don't remember. Oh yeah, he's responding there. Yeah, and there might be like a limit of what the GPU will do as well. So yes, right. So then what you do is you do stitching, you do image stitching. Graham actually posted on the forum, Graham posted on the forum. He might have even put a little, he'll sometimes, Graham is a former employee and friend of ours who, you know, makes incredible tools. He did the VR object, and he did Gen, and you know, he's a beast. But he'll sometimes bust out these really incredible patches of techniques. So he did this thing where you do like 4 quadrants and stitch them together to get, if you hit a limit of your GPU, you can do that. So yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff is like, this is stuff that I've never needed to do that, so I don't know how to do it. I do real-time stuff, so I've never really messed with it that much. But these kinds of problem solving are great to happen on the forum or on the Facebook group, and everybody kind of chips in and shares their experience with it. So just to say that, yeah, don't be shy, you know, if you ever come across that kind of stuff. Like, people will be happy to jump in with their experience with it. And if no one does, it might be because you're a trailblazer, in which case you have to get it, you know, you have to go pioneering and then tell us what you've discovered.
Well, this is great. Thank you so much, Rob. It was a heroic journey through Jitter. Very very good. And I hope everyone enjoyed it, and you're most welcome to come again, you know, in the coming months. We also have, for those of you who are more entry level and discovering Jitter and want to get direct interaction, we have Cassie Tarakajan giving a workshop in a couple of weeks on a Saturday, 16th of May. So you can come to that. The first part will be live streamed to everybody, so you can just watch the introduction if you want to. But then if you want to work with others and get interaction, you can join in the workshop, and that will be for a close group of people. And Cassie will answer your question directly and work with you to make you learn the ropes of Visi, Jitter, and Max together. So that concludes our 7th online session. We have another one completely different on Monday. where Robin Hunter is going to present his online sequencer, which works on the web. And it's collaborative as well, so we can make music together. It's very simple, but it's quite fantastic to see that coming of someone who just graduated a few years ago, but not so long ago, and is already building a product and putting it to the web. So we're going to hear from Robin on Monday, and on Thursday we have Jordan Rudas coming to give us some insight into the approach to gigging from home. You know, what it means to professional musician to not be able to do any gigs, you know, and what mechanism you can put in place to to survive in this new economy that's probably here to stay for a little longer. So thank you again, Rob. It was really great, and I hope you'll come back. And thank you to all the folks who came in tonight, especially the Cycling 74 folks. Andrew, there was Ginger, Ashley I saw coming in, Tom Hall as well. A lot of great folks who came to help answer questions as well, and all the people who contributed to the Jitter library. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Well, and see you soon.
Great to see all familiar names pop up. So appreciate that.
Likewise. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.